Hi, I'm Nancy O'Neill with the Detroit Business Hub Group, and I have other members of our group with us today. I just wanted to mention an upcoming event that we're going to be hosting on Wednesday, March 11th at ELE Wealth Management. You'll be able to meet several members of our hub group, and four of our members will be offering presentations. So that will be held at ELE Wealth Management, 18700 West 10 Mile Road in Southfield. Once again, I'm Nancy O'Neill. I'm the founder and president of Detroit Business Hub Group. I recently wrote a book called Fire Your Job, Be Your Own Boss. And from the book, I realized that a lot of business owners, especially new business owners, they need help. They don't necessarily know all the ins and outs of business because it's new to them and they're on a learning curve. Because as a business owner, you're not just selling your product or concept, you're also running the business. So you're in charge of human resources, people calling, customer complaints. You're in charge of product quality. You're in charge of people management, hiring staff, payroll. So these are all parts of owning your own business. It's not just the product or service that you're offering. You can either choose to hire people to do those things, but most of the time with new business owners, they do it themselves. The Hub Group comes in to help because we are a group of business professionals. We own our own businesses, and we can help you put those pieces together. So the benefit of the Hub Group is that you have access to 8 to 9 different professionals who on your own, if you were to go to them, more than likely you could not afford them. We're offering you these products at a discounted rate in order to help you grow your business. If you're ready to jumpstart your business in 2020, hire the Detroit Business Hub Group and go to my website at nancyo'neill.com.
My name is Gregory Blackwell with Greg Blackwell Insurance Agency. I run a farmers insurance office, and I've been doing that for the last 10 years. We're located in Southfield, Michigan. We consult with pretty much all things insurance, largely auto insurance, life insurance. I'm one of the few farmers insurance agents that has the designation of financial services certified professional by the American College. So it's one of those things as far as insurance and financial services go. I got a pretty good working knowledge. I do help a lot with small businesses as they are, whether they're launching or whether they're already up and running, because at every growth spurt, there's typically levels of insurance that need to be addressed. Sometimes at the onset of even submitting a bid, certain levels of insurance need to be in place. And so I've been able to guide my clients and be a resource for them during those times of transition. I'm able to help them look ahead too, in terms of, okay, here's where you're at. Once you go to this level, this is going to be the insurance that you're going to need. And to give you an idea, I mean, whether it be workers' compensation, general liability, I got a small medical practice in Southfield where we're working on their malpractice insurance, as well as, believe it or not, down to their business auto coverage. So I can pretty much consult with all those things in between. And I think that through the Hub Group, when you have folks who are starting their own business, I can certainly help out and kind of add some direction to what the insurance needs are going to be at that time.
Well, I'm Michael Rizzo from Rizzo. I've had my own video marketing company that's been moderately successful over the last few years. And the thing I love about working in video, working on the web, is that for businesses of all sizes, you can look as polished and as big and as important as you want to with the right marketing tools. And for the kinds of clients that we deal with the Hub Group, it's an opportunity to help small businesses to make a really big, polished first impression. And you need that to inspire confidence and to get the kind of customers that you need to build your business.
Yeah.
My name is Dale Grant. I'm a CPA. My business is Ashton Business Consulting. I specialize in working with small businesses, nonprofits, and individuals with regards to their accounting, bookkeeping, and tax service needs. What I've found in the city of Detroit is that right now we're going through sort of a renaissance period with regards to entrepreneurs, small business, and nonprofits, not only with doers and people out there in the marketplace that are taking ideas to the marketplace and bring them to the marketplace, but also organizations and resource groups that are available for those people to be successful. And you find that. You find that in organizations such as the Hub Group, where you can go to one place and meet a videographer, an insurance person, an accountant, an attorney, a real estate agent, whatever you may need. And that's become incredibly important. Myself, as I mentioned, the services that I provide, for a lot of people, I help them get their QuickBooks set up and in order, or I help provide tax services to them. Or, they might be in a position to where they're ready to grow, they're ready to expand operations or build out their current location, and I'm able to introduce them to lenders and other organizations within the city of Detroit that will aid in their growth. And then I'm able to provide the financial statements as well as the tax documents that they need in order to support those lending activities.
Yeah, and so I'm Imran Mumtaz. I'm a program and loan fund manager at Michigan Women Forward. We're a nonprofit organization that assists entrepreneurs in a variety of different ways, primarily one of those ways being access to capital. And so we provide entrepreneurs with microloans between $2,500 and $50,000, usually at an 8% interest rate and over a term of 3 to 6 years. In addition to that financial capital, we also provide a variety of holistic services to sort of ensure the success of the entrepreneur, and we also work strategically with partners like the Detroit Hub Group to leverage those relationships and assist entrepreneurs with any sort of areas of expertise that we may not have internally ourselves. And so excited to be here as a guest and share in the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So first thing we're going to talk about before we get into our questions is off the air. We were talking about what we did over the weekend. And I actually had a really interesting weekend because we had an event at my church, Triumph Church, about the state of Black business. And we had Shannon Steele as the guest speaker. And she is the only African-American woman in Michigan to own a major hotel chain. She owns Ramada Plaza by Wyndham in Southfield, right in Southfield. So I was really impressed because I had never heard of her before. So I feel like I need to be more in the know about what's going on in local businesses. But she's very young, and she's doing her thing. She's a female entrepreneur. So I thought that was pretty exciting. Did anybody else have any business-related activities going on this weekend? Sales, anything else?
My weekend was spent doing taxes. Saturday taxes, Sunday taxes. I leave here, I'll be doing more taxes. It's that time of the year. And so, as you're putting together your business, and if you're in the beginning stages of your business, you need to be thinking about your entity structure with regards to how taxes impact you. If you're currently in business, you need to be thinking about, the decisions that you make and how they impact your tax liability. So all that's important as we're moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Also in news, the first Black national news channel launched, I believe, over the weekend on the 17th, or that's actually today. Shad Khan, who's a billionaire in Florida, is financing the news channel. Just wanted to know if anyone else had heard about it or if they plan on taking a look at it. Anybody?
I've seen social media
about it,
advertisements about it.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch, but I am excited about that. I'm looking forward to that.
Do we have a social media person in the hub?
Yes, that is Mia Scott.
Yeah, social media is huge. It levels the playing field.
It does.
For businesses. Mm-hmm. You can advertise, you can get your name out there, and you can do it, as cheaply or as expensively as you choose to.
Yeah, it's a great time to be after you.
No, I just said a nominal fee.
Yeah.
Or free.
It's just a great time to be building or running a small business because there's so many different avenues where you have access that you just never had before. Because
exactly.
We're not living in broadcast TV world where if you can't afford even a local cable contract, how are you
Right.
going to advertise?
Right.
Well, it's like you mentioned with the videography, making someone look as big as they want to. I tell that with my clients all the time. With QuickBooks, I've worked in corporate America, so I've seen a number of financial statements. I know what a QuickBooks financial statement and invoice looks like. I've seen $100 million companies use that same financial statement and invoice. So for someone with a small budget who may be working out of their home office to be able to appear in that manner, as a $100 million company, and they can do the same thing with their videography, to
Absolutely.
where it doesn't cost a lot to look the part.
And if you're business to consumer, I don't want to go to someone's website. I want to see on Facebook or Instagram everything I need to know to make a purchase decision. If you're
That's what we
selling,
spend all our time at anyway.
exactly,
Yeah.
show it to me online and tell me, business stuff that happened over the weekend. Not much, but I had a really great sandwich at a pop up in Hazel Park. Because Doug's Delight, which is a business I like, but it's an ice cream shack, so they're closed in the wintertime. But Matt and Mo's Italian Beef did a takeover at Doug's Delight. I saw it on Facebook. I went there and bought an $11 sandwich. And I did
Sounds
that
good.
because it was in the right place at the right time. And it's two folks running out of a truck, but they made a damn good sandwich.
That's good.
I would add a little bit of caution, though. Although this is the day and era where you could just pull out your phone and broadcast to the world, your business and what you're doing, I think you got to be mindful of, the type of business. And I'll leave a business out that comes to mind, but I know of a high-end retail clothier that, they'll just splash up, and they're new and they're just getting started, and they're splashing up, videos left and right that lack the polishing, so you got to be cautious, I think, of how you are, especially when you could with a camera phone, you could create frequency and touch a lot of people really quickly. But I still think that you got to look at, how do you want your vision? How do you want your business seen? That's the touch of your brand. That's the feel of your
Absolutely.
brand. So you really got to be, cognizant. That's why gentlemen like, Mr. Rizzo come in, who could perhaps give you a polished look as you are,
Yes.
Showcasing your brand. But again, you can go crazy and you can put it in front of a lot of people really quickly, but again, so you got to be mindful of that.
Well, my dad once taught me, and I've always repeated this, you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Absolutely.
And the kinds of stuff I do is that first impression level work.
Right.
But then there's different levels of video and there's different levels of corporate communication. And there's places for, I don't want to say casual, but there's places for
Right.
stuff that you can make yourself on your phone. If it's an explainer or if it's about, here, now, today,
Yeah.
where it doesn't necessarily make good business sense to bring someone like me out. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That top level stuff. I have a very silly little poster that I roll out to meetings that I call the Rizzo Deliverables Pyramid. And at the very top of the pyramid is like the overview videos that I make that are polished and have a lot of production into them. But as you get deeper down on the levels, there's stuff you have to talk about that it doesn't make business sense to bring me out for.
Right.
But you can get out there with your phone and, I give a lot of advice that I don't do enough of myself. But if you don't have an Instagram story every day of what's going on, what you do, you're missing out on being in that mindscape for people. Because if you're trying to take them from, if you've got them for auto, but you want to get them for life or home, hey, it's Greg, and, we're closing out a couple of deals today, and I'm excited about it, and I like these customers. It's all about building relationships, and that's not necessarily... in-person relationships are hugely important,
Yeah.
but just as important is staying on the mind of all the different people that you work with on a regular basis.
You know
Yeah,
what's
you need those
funny?
touches.
I'm sorry. Between all the social media platforms, for whatever reason, it seems like Instagram is the one that has the furthest reach. Even for me as an accountant, LinkedIn, Facebook is the Instagram stuff. But I actually wanted to go back to a point that Greg made, which is, I think, really important. A friend of mine started a business a while ago, and his mentor told him, you don't want to grow too fast. And at the time, I'm not an accountant, but I also have a sales background. So growing too fast doesn't really make sense to me because that salesman in me always wants to go out and get more and more business. But as you kind of get into, being in business, you kind of begin to understand what that means even more. And I think that social media plays a part into it, because in social media, you can look wildly famous and ready to take on those orders. And if you do it right, or if you get that right share or that right hit, you might get inundated with a number of orders. And if you haven't done the proper business planning or prepared yourself to take on that level of business, that goes back to your point of only the first time to make a first impression. You know, which is kind of where your organization comes into play with regards to helping organizations understand it's not just about branding yourself or making those connections, but it's also about doing that underlying work to make sure that you're ready to be successful.
Well, you want to under promise and over deliver.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get political, but there's that notion of entrepreneurs as job creators. And I reject that, because nobody hires anybody until you're so busy you can't possibly do the work yourself. And that's kind of, to your point, growing too fast. I don't like to bring on new people, because my brand standards have a lot to do with my being personally involved in not every aspect of every project, but I have hands on everything. Ellis Adell talks about, having goals for your year and having stretch goals for the year.
Right.
And to that point, I personally every year set out with this. I have a salary cap in mind. I have a point where I don't need any more money. If I get anything above and beyond that, well, then I have to reinvest that into the business and make Rizzo stronger for next year. And I don't hit that every year, but if I hit it, I could take another vacation, or I could be better prepared to serve customers in the next calendar year. And there's a point where, I could keep doing more and then see quality decline a little because you're cutting corners because you're too busy. Or you say, okay, I've got the customers I need. How do I serve them better? And then set yourself up to do better work in the long run.
Yeah, you do. And I wish Sherry could be with us today, but you do need those employees to help you grow your business, but you want the right type of employees. And you want someone that has your vision in mind and who's not self-seeking, because Greg and I have talked about this before. It's like one employee can, sink you or float you. So you definitely don't want a drain who's just going to take money out of your overall budget. You need someone that's actually shares your vision with you and is going to help you grow.
And I think one thing that's core to the whole Hub Group for all of our businesses and any business we help is that you're good at the thing that you're good at, but you also have to do all of the other tasks of running and managing a business. And hiring people is terrible. Nobody likes doing that. Nobody likes getting rid of people.
Well, I think it really depends upon what you want your business model to be. If you go out into business and you decide, hey, listen, I want to be a sole proprietor and it's just myself and I want to have, maybe I want to have more time with my family, that's fine. If your goal in business is to go out and grow a large organization, then you're going to have a separate business model. When I talk with entrepreneurs about their business, there's an adage that I like to tell them, but, you want to be working on your business and not in your business. So, and we all, to a certain degree, want to have a level of control over our business, there comes a point where you have to let some control go. And of course, with that in mind, so that you can work on because you're not going to be good at everything. Right?
Absolutely.
I tell people want to know why they want to hire me, because they're not accountants. So while you can do this work, you can spend the time to learn it. That's not why you went into business. You went into business to make videos or to sell insurance or whatever it is you went into business to do. But you didn't go into business to do those day-to-day mundane activities.
Absolutely.
And that's one reason why the Detroit Business Hub Group exists, because, like, for instance, with me writing business plans, this is not something that most people know how to do. So, sure, you can go out and get a book. You can fire your job, be your own boss. However,
that's on Amazon, right?
It is on Amazon. I'm plugging myself. But if it's not something that you're doing every day, or if you're not familiar with that language, it's like, yes, you can write a business plan. But like in your case, even though I have a communications degree, if I just go out and decide, hey, I'm just gonna, videotape someone today and edit it myself and put it on the air tomorrow, I can get it done, but it's not going to be as polished as it would be if you did it, because this is your field. This is what you do every day. So it's just really interesting that, like, business is one of the only professions where you don't have to have any type of prior knowledge, no formal education, no experience, and you can just go out and say, hey, I'm selling this now, come buy my product. And that goes back to what you said about being polished. Is this the type of brand that you want to present to the public? And how long are you going to stay in business, with shoddy looking packaging and an image?
It's also about resource allocation. If you're spending your time doing the marketing and the accounting and all
Right.
the other stuff, then you're not spending your time doing income producing activities.
Exactly. I talk about that in my book too. We have an IPA activity template in the back because I think that's one of the most important things for new business owners is time allocation. And a lot of times we don't spend our time wisely because we're so used to working the 9 to 5. And if you are blessed enough to be able to work your business full time, a lot of people cannot leverage your time. Like they have no idea, what do I do when I get up in the morning from when I'm supposed to be done? And if you're working at home, there can be filled with distraction too. So it's something that you do have to use a lot of discipline with.
Yep. Anytime I'm looking at an Excel spreadsheet, it's time I'm not selling or making videos.
Exactly.
Yeah, you gotta look at, I think, outsourcing too. Like as we were talking about hiring employees, there's certain tasks that you may be able to halfway take off your plate. Like a prime example, and I use a really good answering service, and I've been using a really good answering service for about the last couple of years, and they do a great job. So if I'm in a meeting, before my motto was, okay, well, I'll hire somebody. So as a overflow of phone calls come in, there's somebody to catch those phone calls while I'm in a meeting or on the phone. Well, I got an answering service. They only get paid per call. And so that I don't have to worry about sick days, off days, whatever the case may be. And they do a great job catching my overflow. So there's things like that you can put in place. And there's ways, depending on what business you may be in, ways of utilizing technology to kind of streamline your time without necessarily. And you could even hire a virtual assistant if you have certain, you know what your tasks are, and you can easily show them to somebody. You could kind of say, you do it they do it at home, but hey, I have 6 hours a day or 3 hours a day. These are the things that need to be done. So that's important too. But it's really, to me, business is, you got to get really creative. It's a matter of staying as lean as possible. And it's a matter of, there's no substitute for experience. And most times, even if as you start a business, you're really leaning on your prior experiences that you had in other fields to hopefully come together and move you forward. But I can tell you from 10 years of being an insurance agent, I'm better at it now than I was 10 years ago. And not just better at, I can buy paper cheaper. I could buy ink cheaper. I could, everything, all the things that I need to operate and manage an office, I could do it far more efficiently. And so there's just no substitute for, experience. You can't buy it. You're
better at running a business above and beyond being better at being an insurance agent.
Sure.
Those are two different things that you've leveled up over the years.
Sure. You could, if you hit the lottery and said, God, I'm going to take this money, I'm going to open up another insurance agency, I'm going to take him out. You don't have the experience, so there's no amount of money. Same with, like, I run into people who just came into a lump sum of money and they jumping into the real estate business. I'm like, you don't really know what you're doing. Right. Just and they play hardball. They don't play softball. There's no substitute for, and sometimes not having is better than going in, because that teaches you how to get creative. If you had all the money in the world to advertise, you would just throw it, and you had all, you won't be seeing a return. Yeah. So anyway,
let's bring Imran in, because Imran, like what we've been discussing at every stage, we need capital.
Yeah.
So you need startup capital. You need for employees.
Yeah.
Like you said, the operations. So where do you fit in? Do you mostly work with startup businesses? Do you work with people who are established and want to grow? Yeah. Share your story. Tell us what you do.
Yeah, so as an organization, we really work with entrepreneurs and businesses kind of across the spectrum and across the state of Michigan. So whether it be a person who's like starting up and needs that capital to really take their project from idea to working business, or somebody who's been in business for a number of years and is trying to go from stage A to stage B, we really provide capital to fit any of those needs. I think the biggest challenge is, does an entrepreneur need our capital to make that next step, or do they need capital at all to take that next step? And is that next step the right step for them? And so kind of speaking of the conversations we've been having here, right, it's what's that next strategic attainable step, not oh, I have this grand vision and I know what the end point looks like and I need to get there and $100,000 is going to get me there. Because, you know, it's going to be a series of steps to get there. And if for whatever reason one of those steps doesn't succeed and then you're stuck with this $100,000 debt obligation, you know, in addition to kind of strapping yourself as an entrepreneur, you're kind of strapping your business with that debt obligation, that cash flow management. So what we do is we take a very holistic relationship with the entrepreneur, identifying, well, what are your needs just as a business owner? And then can we fit those needs, whether through capital, whether through connecting with other resources, or just facilitating conversation. And then through this very, you know, long-term committed, very genuinely rooted interaction, we're able to identify, okay, if you need capital, what's the best possible situation we can put you in to both have that capital, but then also succeed with that capital.
Now,
what's your-
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What's your criteria for these microloans? And also, I wanted to know, I'm curious about the men. Do you work with men-owned businesses as well?
Yeah.
Since you kind of promote yourself as a woman.
Yeah. So kind of at like the core of the organization overall as a nonprofit focused on advancing equity and opportunity for women and girls across the state of Michigan. So while entrepreneurship is a component of that, we do a lot of work in a bunch of other areas. So at the onset of our organization, a lot of the work we did was with women entrepreneurs. As we've kind of expanded and grown our operation and taken on other funding dollars, our scope and breadth of entrepreneurs has also increased. So now we work with entrepreneurs across the board. There's no necessarily, I guess, criteria or threshold for who we restrict our providing services to. In terms of criteria, what we're really looking for in entrepreneurs is we kind of see ourselves as a non-traditional lender, and that's kind of how we've been labeled as. And so in that scope, we don't really have a baseline threshold for what an entrepreneur needs to meet from the onset of talking to us. So if an entrepreneur is interested in a microloan or interested in services, then we'll be open to having that conversation. Now, there are certain criteria, you know, as we do our due diligence that, you know, this is not a risk-worthy investment for us or a risk-worthy loan, but that's something that we get to at a certain point. We don't necessarily from the onset say, oh, you have to have X credit score, your credit history has to be this, you have to be making X dollars of income or projected this annual revenue. And I think that's kind of, you know, a core competency of a lot of lenders that are in the non-traditional space in Detroit and in Michigan. You know, we are one, but we're not the only. And I think the other element of it is entrepreneurs need to be open to having those conversations and identifying what's the best capital source for them, whether it be our organization or another one. So.
No, Imran, it's not just lending that Michigan Women's Forward does. Correct. I know I've personally been at the organization and provided QuickBooks training classes.
Yeah.
And actually have a relatively new client, and she's doing well. She's about 6 months in business, and she believes, hey, I need some other help, some suggestions as to more like a mentorship. So I actually suggested that she call your organization.
Yeah.
Would your organization be a good fit for that new business owner that, you know, is sort of looking for a little bit of help?
Yeah, definitely. Again, lending is just a component of the entrepreneurship support that we provide. We have a 6-week cohort-based program called Women Up to Learn, or the Go for the Growth program, which takes entrepreneurs and puts them through a 6-week intensive, really designed at developing certain elements of their business, their financial management systems, their HR management systems, and getting them from maybe less formal conceptualization of their idea to this really full standing, like I can go out and I'm ready to take that next step. In addition to that, we host a number of pitch competitions during the year where winners win up to $10,000 as a grant prize. And then in addition to that, again, we connect entrepreneurs with the right resource. I mean, that's our big strength is our network. And I think that's also a big strength in entrepreneurship in general, right, is leveraging that network the right way. And so we build connections and relationships with anyone we think could provide services. And then if an entrepreneur comes to us, if we can't direct them to the right person, we'll refer them to one of our partners who could then direct them to the right person. So whether that's mentorship or guidance or just advice, a general conversation, we're, you know, excited to have that and excited to get the entrepreneur going on whatever their next step is.
Okay, great. Well, hopefully you'll consider us as a resource.
Oh, yeah,
as well.
of course.
Okay, next question. So aside from the finances, which is usually a really big deal with businesses, the next question is, where do I find customers? So anybody got any ideas?
You know what? I like I said, I came from a sales background, and my personal story was I thought that I was going to work the phones. And that worked. I called some organizations. I introduced myself. But I got the biggest bump by going out and meeting people.
Right.
Shaking hands, passing out business cards, even doing workshops.
Yeah.
You know, I would do a workshop and, I typically don't charge for workshops. And my wife is like, what are you doing? We need income. Why aren't you charging for these workshops? But it's about building those relationships. And you build relationships with those organizations. You build relationships with potential clients. And I've gotten quite a few clients, even from NWF, by giving out that workshop and providing that knowledge to those business owners who need it and recognize it as a resource.
Yeah, a lot of times people want that extra information. Like they think they're ready to make a buying decision, but it's like, they're kind of hesitant because they're like, I just want a little bit more information. Then when they meet you, they come out to the workshop, which is what we're doing on March 11th. They feel a little bit more comfortable. You've knocked down some barriers. You've made that face-to-face connection, and usually that's what takes them over the hump on, okay, I'm ready to buy now.
I mean, somebody
So
such as
it's
myself.
really important.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mind doing a workshop because, most people already don't want to do their taxes. They already
is
don't want to do
definitely
their
true.
QuickBooks, right? I can't go out and find the correct insurance policy
Right.
for myself. So for a gentleman such as Greg to come out and do a workshop and explain the differences of a commercial insurance, well, now I at least have something I can Google and find out information for. And because, he's provided really good information for me and I already trust his opinion, I'm more inclined to give him a call and say, hey, now I'm ready to come in and have that meeting with you so we can sit down and find out what the correct level of coverage is that I need for my business.
And Greg's really good. I've been to one of his workshops, so I just wanted to give him a free plug too.
Oh, thank you. I think finding new clients is depending on what business that you're in, but you definitely got to have a plan. Natural market, which is the people that you already know, friends, family, loved ones. You want to lean on them. You don't want to wear them out, but you definitely want to be able to lean on your natural market. You and the people that you do know, and so you going into business, you definitely want to have kind of just a game plan in terms of how you're going to find people for your product, but then also to really try. And this is a slow process, but that client who does receive your product, does receive your service, that's your biggest advertisement right there. So you really want to do, like an A1 job. You want to put your energy and effort there. And then ask them, hey, who else do you know who could, benefit from this service? And so that's a slow process but that's ultimately where you want to be at. You can't buy that level of advertising, which is that word of mouth recommendation.
Right.
You just can't. And the businesses that I've actually seen who do very well, they don't necessarily. I mean, that's their advertisement is the service they provide. They put all their energy and focus there, and let everything else kind of take care of itself. And if they do advertise, they're speaking to the clients who've already touched their product. They're just making another impression on that, not necessarily to retain new folks, because it's kind of like, but nothing wrong with that. I mean, but just a lot of you got to pay attention to what you're doing, and you got to. The clients that you have a chance to do business with, you want to make sure that you're leaving the best impression.
Yeah, I mean, I think touching on that with our work with entrepreneurs, one of the biggest things we see is entrepreneurs need to identify who that perfect customer is, like who's the ideal single customer, and then craft your experience to that one customer. And then inevitably so the clients that are on the margins will come into your base when that one person theoretically is marketing your product. They're going to be the biggest advocate for your product. And I think that's the most successful entrepreneur is the one who identifies what that ideal customer is and caters to that and doesn't try to, again, we were speaking earlier, throw out like a wide net and cast.
Be all things, all people.
Yeah, if you start off small and focus on that first step, then like inevitably so that person's probably going to provide significantly more value than if you had this wide customer base to kind of start off from the get-go.
I think so. If you actually grow into so in other words, when you focus on your client's needs and let that guide you, and so as you're taking care of your client's going to kind of express some different needs, perhaps that you wasn't even ready for. But if you take, okay, well, gosh, let me look into that. Let me research that. So a prime example is for this year, a big part of so I do insurance, and a big part of my insurance pricing is based off of whether you have health insurance or not. A lot of entrepreneurs owning their own business may or may not necessarily have health care. So just kind of being client focused, I went on and reached out to a really good a healthcare provider who provides really good rates that will go primary. And primary means that in the event of a car crash, they pay primary benefits. So just that wasn't, that was just focusing on my client that drove me to another avenue to be able to serve, so now I can say, hey, well, gosh, I can take care of the health insurance. I can get you that discount. Health insurance will cost you an extra $40 a month, but now you can go visit your doctor, as well as your auto rates are on par. So just let that, if you stay client focused, that'll kind of guide you just in because you want that client to be fully satisfied, and you've taken good care of them, and that'll kind of guide, that'll guide your course. Let's just say that.
It's funny.
Just open up a new niche for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. You start off with your business model conceptually, and you think it's going to go one way, and then you start practicing, and you get in the business, and you find out, like you just said, well, here's where the real need is, and then you start to craft it.
Yeah, so it sounds like to me a big basis is just planning, period, that a lot of times, even if you have a plan, we say have a plan A, you're going to need a B or C, but at least have a plan A to start out with. And it sounds like that's what Imran was saying too, that a lot of times people say, oh, I got this, lump sum of money. I just inherited $100,000 or however they got it, won the lotto, whatever. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go, bust the doors open with this business. But it's like, okay, well, what's the plan? Like, what are you going to sell? So I think planning is sounds like it's the biggest part of everything. Mike, you wanted to say something?
Well, going back to Greg's point a little earlier is when you're looking for customers, my top tier of customers, the best customers I bring on are the people I got from the last job that I did. I did a great job for one company and another company that's adjacent to theirs, saw my work, said, that's great, I want to hire that guy. And that's the best customers I get from that. And then there's, a tier below that, which is I reject cold calling. There's nothing wrong with it. But there are better ways to be spending your time.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's speaking engagements and networking events and meetings where I think for all of our businesses and even most business to consumer businesses, I think positioning yourself as a consultant with expertise is a lot better than saying, I've got this product, I want you to buy this product.
Yeah, you're presenting yourself as an expert and you're offering free information. That's what a lot of people are lacking. They want that information so they can make an intelligent buying decision.
And I think even showing someone how to set up QuickBooks, there is that emotional need that everybody who's learning that says, I can do that now, but I don't want to. I want this guy to do it for me. It sets you up in a position to take something off the plate. Makes good business sense to hire a professional. And then even back to your earlier point about, there are things you shouldn't necessarily be doing with your time that take you away from core competencies. So that second tier of people who don't know me, but they get to know me, and I inspire some level of confidence that I'm going to be helpful to them is important. And then at the third tier, that is the stuff that's, if you see a Rizzo ad on Facebook or in Google search, I do those, and I'm very happy with the business that I get off my website. But those are the exception, not the rule. That you get someone who happens to be looking for my services, at least. Maybe something that's kind of esoteric. But when they find me, again, if someone calls me off the website and says, hey, come in and quote this video, I treat that like a cold call. I have to go into that meeting and from scratch teach them that, hey, you want to do business with me over the 2 or 3. Because if they find you on the website, they're getting quotes. And you've got to inspire that you're the best of the people that they brought in. And for me, it's never that I win it on price. It's that I win it on this guy gets it, and he's going to do work that's a tier better than whoever else I brought in.
And the other thing, too, about even if they do find you online, they're looking at those reviews to even make a decision on, is this somebody I want to interview or possibly hire? Yeah. So Google reviews are really important. Yelp's important. Everybody looks at all of that because I personally prefer referrals. If I don't know the person, I'm going to be that much more hesitant. So I'm going to say, hey, I don't know this person. Let me see what other people are saying about them online. And you can throw 1 or 2 things out because, like somebody might have something personal against that business owner. But for the most part, those are testimonials like you were talking about earlier. So they sell themselves. But I personally got referred to Mike from a photographer. I did a photo shoot and I said, hey, I'm thinking about getting some video done. Who do you recommend? And you were the first person he came up with. So then I called Mike. We had a really brief conversation because I'm very bottom line. I was like, okay, so what's your price? So he told me his price, and it's like there was just this dead silence, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's like out of my price point, but I'm gonna get back to you. I'll let you know, maybe 1 or 2 years down the road. So then I don't know if you might have referred me to someone, or I got another referral, and this guy was just kind of working out of his trunk type person. I don't think it was you. I think it was somebody else. He's gonna work this deal out. Then he like sent me an invoice from Google and had no website, and I was like, oh, I can't do this. So I was like, no, this is like he met my price point, and so I was like, this is just like too low for quality. So then I called Mike back. I'm like, look, Mike, I really want to work with you. You're out my price point. Can we work on this, on the price thing? So we just established a rapport over the phone, and Mike thankfully was able to work with us, and then he actually came on board to Detroit Business Hub Group, so it worked out.
And that being part of the basis for the Hub Group, because all of us are professionals that are looking at helping businesses that aren't necessarily in the tier of business that we deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But I think part of that is, just to a small extent, it's sort of a ministry. We want to go out and help people that need our help to do things at a higher tier than what they're just getting started.
Ready
and
for,
we're making
yeah.
But I think that's, that's good business to be in.
Yeah.
You're meeting the right people. And again, it's getting out there, and that top tier, the clients I want to find are the people who know.
Yeah, who do you know? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think one of the pitfalls, not to keep us on course, but something I see a lot of entrepreneurs, even self-included, as they transition from working at a job to owning their own business, is tax liability. Before, at a regular day job, taxes was being taken out, and they'll file a refund. Now there's no taxes being taken out.
Yeah.
And then after maybe a year or two, or you're doing fairly decent, now you owe money. And I think I probably had an accountant perhaps maybe lean in or glean some. But that's a big. I see a lot of entrepreneurs, self-included, by the way.
Me too.
Who
still paying taxes.
Who kind of fell in, and not even understanding the how, like, in other words, if you owe. Maybe you owe money on a credit card, but when you owe the government, like
that's one of your worst creditors.
I mean, the amount of interest that they charge and so forth. So probably from an accounting standpoint, I think you should probably kind of chime in and how are some of the ways that you can help a new business navigate around that transition of not getting caught up in owing the government thousands of dollars and so forth.
It's funny when we think about taxes, we think about our federal tax bracket that we're in. Oh, I'm in a 25% tax bracket. Okay, so those are your federal tax withholdings. What they don't think about, no one thinks about, is your FICA and unemployment, otherwise known as your self-employment taxes. So sure, you're in a 25% tax bracket, but you also owe an additional 15% because you're both employer and employee in self-employment taxes, okay? And even if you've got tax credits, and we've got an increased standard deduction, we've got the QBI deduction, self-employment income is based off of that gross number, that adjusted gross income before you take that standard deduction. So that actually is the hardest number to get down, because I know you got 3 kids, but that doesn't come off of this number, and you're married in the whole 9 yards. So from a tax planning standpoint, there's a couple things you need to do. One is that if you expect to have a tax liability of $1,000 or more, you should be remitting, or the IRS actually requires you to remit quarterly tax payments.
Right.
And you can either pay 100% of what you paid last year, or your accountant can calculate what it is this year, and you can pay 90% of that. Right. There's that. Yeah. And then there's also the appropriate tax planning. So one of the things that I talk a lot about with business owners, especially new business owners, and especially those that have gone to an organization and they borrowed some money, right? And they've bought some depreciable items. Maybe they went out and they built up they did a build to suite, and maybe they put $60,000, $70,000 in there, and they had a good accountant, and that accountant came through and says, well, you can't deduct this stuff. This is all depreciable stuff. We're going to put this on your balance sheet. Right? Well, I'm going to come in there, and if in the first year when you spent that money, you can take what's called a Section 179 deduction. right? And you can write off that entire amount. You can't do it in any other year but the first year, right? So if you haven't made a lot of money in that first year and you take that big deduction, that way you can eliminate the tax liability you have that year and you can carry it forward for the next 20 years, okay? So it's those type of things. And there are other tax mitigation strategies that you can utilize that you should be utilizing to ensure that you're not overpaying on your taxes. So that's a huge one. And then the two quick things I want to touch on was you mentioned planning. Business plans are huge, okay, because we spend a lot of time thinking about our business and it's in the conceptual stage. But when you sit down and do a business plan, you can barely get out a paragraph. I've helped people write business plans, but I've got software that goes through questions that force you to think about things. My favorite story to tell is about the guy. I said, we're going to do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I said, what are your weaknesses? He said, I have none. So now it's time for us to do
That's a major one right there.
Now it's time for us to do a deeper dive. And I was quickly able to rattle off 3 of them because of your business. And then to your point, like your story about the pricing. Every new business owner underprices their services. We probably all did it too. I'm going to go ahead and say I did it as well. All right. You should be pricing your product or service at or above market. If you are competing on price alone, that's a race to the bottom. Because all the other service provider or product provider has to do is come in and offer a lower price point, and now that's the quickest way to be out of business. Versus going out, getting customers, meeting people, and extending to them your value proposition. You know, why do you cost more? Well, you know what? When you call, you can get me right on the phone.
Exactly.
If I need to make edits to the video that I provided to you, I'll come to your office and sit down with you and provide this service. Or I'm going to do this. Or I'm going to offer health insurance because I've shopped for health insurance, and health insurance is hard to find and it's intimidating to try to find if you don't know about it. But you know what? I went through Greg and I was able to bundle everything and I got my health insurance and it worked out for me. And that's the value proposition. So I'm going to pay a little bit more for this because in my everyday life, I pay a little bit more for the things that I value.
Absolutely.
I have a once a quarter item on my calendar that comes up where the calendar invite to myself says, hey, you should charge more. And if you go into the description, it's I have a spreadsheet of things I need to look at. I'm like, hey, what have you done to reinvest in your business? So you got a new camera since the last time you did this? Look at what you've done in terms of jobs in the last 3 months. What's changed? Who's coming? And just to... It's a mindfulness exercise for me because I go into meetings where people say, oh, I got 2-3 quotes that were cheaper than you. Well, I stole this from another guy who works in the industry. Would a plumber show up to your business to work for the hourly rate that you're providing? Because people will come at you and say, hey, I want you to do this job for X dollars. Real estate agents especially. They want you to come out and do drone photography. But I always have to ask myself because of the people who call me, am I charging too much? And the answer is always, no, I should be charging more. And that doesn't mean that you get it every time, but you've always got to be looking at, you know what, when you take a holistic look at your business, what you've been doing, what you've been investing, and what you put out there, the answer is usually yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then,
I
was just going to quickly say, I think one of the values that we always talk about is there are people in the ecosystem that have this expertise, like tax expertise, insurance expertise, videography expertise. But another thing that we don't really stress too much is leveraging the relationships of other entrepreneurs that have gone through what you have done and building off of their experiences in order to better yourself. So some people have gone through the trenches and have had experience, with figuring out how to allocate their assets on their balance sheet or build out their business plan more effectively or identify issues with insurance. And if you can connect with those entrepreneurs and build out your network with other business owners who are doing the same kind of work and in the same kind of space, you can then, seek expertise, seek guidance, and leverage the value of their experience in terms of your business. And that's something that I think speaks to values your customer base and all these other resource partners, but really leveraging other entrepreneurs in that network is, extremely valuable and something that I think helps a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, one thing that Dale said was working with new entrepreneurs. That is our goal with Detroit Business Hub Group because we want to make sure that you're set up correctly. And one of the pitfalls that we can fall into, for myself being an insurance agent for 6.5 years, I set myself up as a sole proprietor because my accountant at the time told me this is the fastest and easiest way you can get set up. Well, as a sole proprietor, I did not have to file taxes quarterly. I waited till the end of the year, and as a result, I'm still paying the IRS right now. So that's just one little tidbit of advice. But had I had a group like the Detroit Business Hub group that said, no, you need to set up as an LLC or form some other type of a business entity where I would have been required to file taxes quarterly, I could have avoided that, now debt that I have from filing once a year and now, being in a payment plan. So if you're set up properly, there's so many pitfalls that you can avoid not falling into. And that's what we're trying to help new business owners with. You had mentioned before that a lot of new business owners, because they're venturing out on their own and they have the guts to go out and do that, they just think, well, I can do this myself. I don't need any help. Why would a group like Detroit Business Hub Group be important for them?
Yeah, a couple things. First off, to that person, don't quit your day job. One of my favorite parts of Fire Your
Absolutely.
JOB, which is available on Amazon. Buy Nancy's book.
Right.
I'll plug it every time.
Thank you.
But the second thing, I think even within the hub group, I think we all commiserate hanging out at our meetings and just talk about, we've all been in a lot of these same situations, and we can all kind of reflect on the 10 or 20 different entrepreneurship problems that you've all had to overcome over the course of building your business. And to anyone who works with us at a lower level than what we're at, just to hear the discourse of the things that every small business owner is going to bump into.
Right.
Hopefully they get over that hump without it being a major problem or winding up dealing with the IRS in the long term. I think there's a lot of value here, even above and beyond the core services of what we put out to do for small business owners.
Well, one of the reasons why, from what I hear, a lot of small businesses go out of business in the first 5 years is over taxes. So taxes are huge. I think a lot of times with, like, if you're using a company like Paychex, if you have employees, you're not really paying attention to the taxes. And then we think that because they're taking care of our payroll, they're going to be filing the local taxes and the city taxes on that's on them. They're doing that. But when you find out that they're not doing that, it's like, this is something that you have to do. And you don't, goes back to what you said, you don't know how to do it. You're kind of stuck. You're like, well, what am I supposed to do now? Because by now you might be already 1 or 2 quarters behind. So there's just a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that we think we know that we really have no clue about. And like you said, when I'm not a tax professional, at that point I was selling insurance. Why am I trying to become a tax professional when that's not what I do? I don't have the training for it. I don't have the expertise, the education, the knowledge, but yet I'm too cheap to want to go out and pay someone for that knowledge and expertise. So I try to save a couple bucks on my own, and in the end, it can be pretty devastating.
Costs a whole lot more than what
it costs. A whole lot more money because, like you said, now you got the tax, you have the IRS interest, you have the city calling, you have all these people calling, and you had no idea. And it's just something that when you are a new entrepreneur, this is something that somebody should have told you, but nobody bothered to share it with you. So now you find yourself, a year in, you're in thousands of dollars worth of debt that you might not even know about or be aware about.
Well, I'll just speak a moment to, I think you mentioned you kind of wind up owing some taxes. I had a year where I had a pretty big tax number. No worries, pick up the phone, work a payment plan out with the IRS. Okay, I'll pay it off when I get to it. I got a payment plan. So I'll look up, and they just automatically draft out of my checking account,
Same here.
$250 a month, I think it was the number at the time. And long story short, I was closing on a loan, and I had to have that tax liability paid for. Oh. So okay, well, cool. I'm gonna get this thing taken care of. I've been paying $250 a month, so I'm thinking I should have it pretty well knocked down. Okay, so I called to get the payoff balance. Or first, I looked on the website, and the number was about the same. 2.5 years ago, right? Like, it has not moved. So I'm on the phone. I'm like, something's wrong here. I've been paying this thing. He's like, well, yeah, it's interest. I'm like, I know it's interest, but there's like, so the amount of interest I thought it was like, they like, no, we charge this like it the way they charge it was like not annualized. It was like, I'm unsure of the calculation, but $250 a month was just about all juice.
You're playing the VIG.
Right. Like, so that's what over 2.5 years, how much is that? It's like 2-3, that's more than 2. That's about almost $5,000, roughly speaking. Yeah. That was just
Eating up.
just
Got interest.
just nothing, right?
Yeah.
That so I did pay it off, but after I paid it off, and I speak to business owners right now that it's like, okay, well, I know I'm on old, but I hop on a payment plan. I got it. I'm like, whoa, do you know like that? Like your money, like yeah, they'll give you a payment plan, but I'm just saying that's about the worst.
And then what are you gonna do about the next year?
Yeah.
It just no, it
They
adds.
just, they
It
just
adds.
throw it on.
It's just like, okay, well,
last
long
year's
as
taxes
Continue
this year,
to
yeah.
accrue, yeah.
it's so, but it is a real, like I said, I mean, but you still have that where there is no taxes coming out of your check. So it's how you handle your taxes is up to you. You could pay them quarterly. You could wait till the end of the year. And, and then at the end of the year, depending on your business, you owe $10,000, $12,000, $15,000, whatever.
And that sort of gets back to Nancy's point. Why reinvent the wheel? If
Right.
you are getting into business and you can speak with someone who has personal experience about dealing with pitfalls and other things that you need to be aware, taxes might not be your issue.
Sure.
Your issue might be branding, marketing.
Right.
It might be, providing a service. Like you mentioned, you don't want to be all things to everyone. I tell
Right.
everybody, pick one thing and excel at that. Instead of trying to, have, you meet with some people and they got, 5 or 6 different business ideas. Well, which one
Yeah.
of them is making money?
Right,
Let's talk about the one that's
exactly.
making money.
Right.
Okay. And I think that, coming to an organization like that, it helps you sort of, become a better business owner and entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I think the tax liability, that's typically you've been running a successful business because you owe money in taxes. So you're kind of like over that initial, kind of whether you're going to make it or not. But that's just something, big time to be mindful of.
It's a good problem to have, but it can definitely get bigger.
Yeah.
Handle it.
It's still a
exactly.
problem.
It's still a problem.
Right. The more money you make, the more taxes you're going to be paying. So that's something to think about. We have about a minute left. 20-second takeaways from everyone. I just want everyone to come out to the event on March 11th, hear from these experts. It's a free event. There's no charge to you. You can actually register online at Eventbrite or Facebook Events, or you can contact me at 248-346-5068. Anybody else?
Yeah, well, Farmers Insurance, Greg Blackwell, office is right there in Southfield, Michigan. Auto, home, life, business insurance. Reach out to me, 248-833-0070. Again, 248-833-0070.
I'm Michael Rizzo. Go to RizzoRizzo.com. You can get my phone number there. But I'm also going to be at that Hub Group event where we're going to take Q&As and in-person presentations. And I think you learn a little bit hearing from us, but there's no substitute for one-on-one conversation. Like, we're all asking and answering questions.
Dale Grant, I'm a CPA. You can find me on Instagram, Dale_the_CPA. You can find me on my website, ashtonbc.com. Or you can even email me, dale.grant@ashtonbc.com.
And I'm Imran, Program and Loan Fund Manager at Michigan Women Forward. You can find us online at miwf.org, or you can give me a call if you want to talk about accessing capital or entrepreneurial support at 331-771-3522.
Yes.
And let me just point out, all of our contact information is going to be down below the video. Click on some
Absolutely.
links. We'll put them in there or in the show notes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. The usual stuff. You've seen YouTube before.